What if I told you that your ability to live a happier, more fulfilling life has an actual percentage attached to it? All factors considered, being happy is nearly 50% within your control every single day. Don't believe it? On this episode of the Wendy Crafts podcast, learn more from my thought-provoking conversation with speaker, consultant, and trainer Buck Davis, who calls himself the most optimistic person he knows. You'll walk away with 3 easy ways to improve your own happiness beginning today. Hello and welcome back to Wendy Crafts, the podcast where we heal through the creative work of our hearts and our hands. I'm Wendy Townley, and my passion for more than a decade has been crafting projects that offer me resilience, purpose, and even strength. Today, we sit down and chat with Buck Davis, a speaker and consultant whose main focus is ensuring happiness, how we experience it, and how we get there. Well, welcome back to the Wendy Crafts podcast. This is a place where we have conversations about creativity, mental health, and how the two come together. And today I am so excited to have one of my new best friends, and you are a new best friend, Buck Davis, joining us. Good. You don't get to say no. So welcome. I am so excited to have a conversation with you today about your research and creativity. So thank you for saying yes to this opportunity. We've got much to cover.
You are so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I want to give credit where credit is due, because your event, which was lovingly called Craft Happy in October of 2023, so at this point coming up later this year on the 2-year anniversary, is what really stuck with me and really was kind of the origin of what Wendy Crafts is becoming this year in 2025. So that event, just for those of our listeners who did not have the privilege of joining us, was a really involved conversation between yourself and our crafting hero, Anna Griffin, about the relationship between our mental health, our emotional well-being, and our creativity and our crafting. And many of us who joined the Craft Happy event with Anna Griffin are card makers and scrapbookers. But what you two talked about and what your research showed is so applicable to many areas of crafting and many areas of just general creativity in our lives. And it stuck so much with me that I knew when I was making plans for the podcast, you had to be one of the first guests.
Come on. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
That was a fun event. It was such a fun event.
It was so, I did not expect to walk away feeling so much, Buck. And I thought, where is this coming from? And again, 2 years later, I'm still thinking about it and coming back. It was fun. One of the first data points that you shared in that event was based on your research and your work, is that 50% of our happiness comes from genetic standpoint and our own natural disposition. So talk a little bit about what that means. Explain to us what that percentage means and how it manifests in our daily lives.
Yeah. This is really research that I cite from a PhD named Sonia Lyubomirsky. She's been studying happiness and well-being, subjective well-being and happiness. I use them interchangeably. And what she's found is that 50% of our happiness comes down to our genetic set point, our DNA. Just like we have DNA that will cause us to have certain color eyes, that will drive how high or how tall, not how high, how tall, the color of our hair, the color of our skin, the shape of our faces. So just like we come into the world with DNA that sets us up for all of those things, we also have a genetic set point for our disposition. Some people come into the world with a very sunny, optimistic disposition. It's just how they are built. And then other people come into the world with a rather doom and gloom disposition. It's just how they're built. So it takes some people a lot more work just to get to where other people begin. My dad has moved through the world with a lens of positivity, half glass full all of his life. My mom, not so much. And so the good news is it's only 50% of our happiness, because a lot of people think that we're either born happy or we're not. No, our genes only make up 50% of our happiness. And then from there, 10% of our happiness is our life situation. Are you pretty or are you plain? Did you grow up in South Carolina or Beverly Hills? Did you come from a single family home? Did your house get hit by a tornado when you grew up? Your life circumstances, Wendy, makes up a mere 10% of your happiness. And this is interesting to me because so many people think, oh, if my life situation would just change, then I would be so much happier. And the fact is, you might be a little happier, but not that much. And if any of you are curious about how this data came to be, these researchers studied identical twins, the two people on the planet who are most similar than anybody else. And they studied twins who had been raised in the same home, and then they studied twins who had been raised in different homes. And they found out that if one had a sunny disposition, then chances are the other one is going to have it as well. And that's exactly what they found. So that's 50%, 10%, and then the remaining 40% of your happiness is your intentional activity. It's what you do, and it's how you think. It's how you look at the world, and it's what you intentionally do to create more positive emotions, more meaning, more autonomy in your life. And this is, very important for us to know, because if we can engage in behaviors intentionally that really boost our optimism and positivity, then we have a significant control over our well-being. And I need to know that. We need to know that, I think.
And I am not a mathematician by any stretch of the imagination, but as I'm visualizing like a pie chart, as you're talking about these percentages, 40% is almost half. So when you reiterate that in theory, research shows that we have almost half of our opportunity to kind of, if not completely control, but influence how we're feeling, why wouldn't we learn how to do that? And for me personally, that's making pretty things with products that belong to our dear Anna Griffin. And then I can make for myself and give away. So when you reiterate that, that really lands with me in a meaningful way, and it should with everyone listening, is that you do have a great opportunity. That's not to say you're going to feel 100% every day, but the opportunity is there on the table for you to reach out and try to influence that and try to turn that, how you're feeling.
Yes. Making pretty things, being creative. In other research, meditating, exercising, demonstrating gratitude, relationships, all of those things, having a optimistic lens, moving through the world, looking for the good, all of those have been proven in research to increase people's well-being.
And I suspect the more we recognize it and the more we understand that's within our control, the more practice it may be getting a little easier, especially for those people who are walking through a chronic mental health condition like depression, like anxiety, as opposed to those who are just like having a rough time, having a rough couple weeks because of work or family.
Yes, we
That's
can
huge.
get stuck into this negative lens. And when I was preparing for this podcast today, I remembered some research that was done. It was in Sean Aker's book, and I'm forgetting the name of, he's a big happiness guy. His name's Sean Aker. And I think he may have even written a book called The Science of Happiness. And he talks about a research study that was done, and I think it was at Harvard, where they paid students to play the game Tetris. Do you know Tetris?
Oh,
Little
I had
square
a
blocks.
minor obsession with it on my Game Boy. Yes.
Yeah. They paid students to play the game Tetris for multiple hours a day for multiple days in a row. And what they found is that when they stopped playing the game Tetris, they continued to see the Tetris pattern. When they would look at wallpaper, they would see the squares. When they would look at carpet, they would see the squares. And
Wow.
so that was there was a cognitive after image that continued to play and repeat in their head from being exposed to that pattern day after day after day. Well, the same thing can happen to us. We can get stuck and mired down to where we're only looking for the negative, because the negative is very attractive. The negative is very easy. There's plenty of negative. So we could constantly be looking for the negative. And then we fall into that pattern where we just don't pay attention to the positive. And chances are there's as many positive things happening in our life or more than the negative stuff, but we're just drawn to the negativity because of that's how our brains built. But when you talk about, people and the more you practice, the more you pay attention, the more you retrain your brain. I absolutely have seen it in my own life where I default to looking for the good. I default to gratitude, but it takes practice and it takes intentionality.
Well, that touches on one of the topics I wanted to talk about with you today, because I did watch a number of your videos online on your great website. And one of the things you said in a few of those presentations is that you, Buck Davis, are one of the most positive people that you know, and you strive to be that. And so I know how I work my positivity muscle, but I want to hear how you strengthen yours on a regular basis.
Yeah, I breathe gratitude, Wendy.
Okay.
I breathe gratitude. A couple of years ago, I think I may have said this during Craft Happy, I had a major heart issue in 2023 where I had to have open heart surgery.
Wow.
It was a whole year journey of discovering this heart issue out of the blue, finding out, am I going to live? What if I do live? What's going to happen? Major heart surgery. And I have learned that my superpower is gratitude. There was a show, quantum gratitude is what I call it. Yeah, quantum gratitude. That if I start to feel myself sinking at all, I will automatically start naming things that I'm grateful for. So even when I was in the cardiac unit at Piedmont Hospital, New Year's Eve, by myself, 2023, I was still naming things that I was grateful for. Grateful that I was going to live, that I had insurance, that I had family and friends. Grateful that I was not going to have a heart transplant. Even though I was my heart was functioning really low, I leaned on gratitude to help pull me through that. So that is something that I practice daily. And in research studies, they find that when people list things they're grateful for, boom, it boosts our joy and our happiness levels.
Where did you learn that skill?
I have done a ton of reading.
Okay.
It's my
You're
early
with the
20s.
book lover here, so.
Yeah, self-help books. I discovered self-help books in my early 20s. Okay. And but I also have a master's degree in professional counseling. So some of this stuff popped up in my counseling degree, but it's really around reading and practicing and trying and see what works. But it's really been the discovery of that. And then when I look at the happiest people around me, I don't even have to ask them. I'll hear them speak of gratitude. My dad's one of the most grateful people that I've ever known. And so that was modeled for me coming up. And it also takes practice, especially when things are not going my way.
Yeah, which happens in life. And we're going to talk about your sweet father here a little bit later, about some of the projects that you're working on, that you've shared on Instagram that I love and have enjoyed following. So, but before we get to that, going back to kind of this idea of happiness, I think something you touched on earlier, which is giving me a lot of pause and thought, is happy people appear to display it effortlessly, and that's certainly not the case, that it takes work. But it's something that so many of us strive for. If we're having a mediocre day, or again, people who are suffering, they just want to feel better. They want the pain to release. They want to feel less anxious. They want to be able to sleep. Why is that grasping at happiness something that tethers the human race? Like, we know we need to eat, we know we need sleep, we know we need sunshine, but why is happiness, like this intrinsic emotion, something that we all crave and need?
Mm-hmm. I think that happiness is a universal emotion that we can all relate to. Just like money is a normalizer or an equalizer. We can all relate to money.
We know when we have it and we know when we don't. Yes. Great.
Same. We know when we have it and we know when we don't. And in a bunch of my classes, I would start out the happiness classes on finish the sentence, I would be happy if, I would be happy when. And people would toss out, when I pay off my student loans, when I have this house, this car, this husband or wife or partner, when my kids are happy. And so that is what's called, some people refer to it as the arrival fallacy. It's a total myth. Our brain balloons out how it thinks we're going to feel when we reach those goals. And the fact is, it's just not true. There's a phenomenon or dynamic, something called the pre-goal positive attainment effect. Pre-goal positive attainment effect, which is the positivity that we experience on the way to reaching the goal. It's the anticipatory joy of how we think we're going to feel when we get the job, when we get the partner, when we get the money. And the fact is in research, it shows that when people get there, they don't get that boost that they thought they were going to be, because our balloon has exaggerated how it thinks we're going to feel. And then other things happen. You get the house, but then you have to get a lawnmower. You get married, and then there's a fight. Or there's wedding debt.
They're not perfect.
Exactly, they're not perfect. Exactly. Yeah. And then when you reach those goals, other goals and responsibilities are revealed that you haven't expected on the way. So there is something to this old cliche. It's not about the destination, it's about the journey. But I think coming back to your original question is, we can all relate to the feeling of happiness. And we want a life free of suffering. We really do, or as minimal suffering as possible. That's what I have found in every person I've ever met. And happiness looks and sounds and feels different for different people.
Very true. And for us crafters and creatives, and those who are joining us today who maybe are curious about the creative effort and the creative act, but aren't really sure the connection between that and our happiness, this is exactly it. Because this is something that you can try, that you can control, that I even know that if I'm having a down day, I just need to pull out my craft supplies. And some days it's kind of like nudging myself and forcing myself and saying, just start arranging your supplies, just start making things. And then you get to that place that many crafters and creatives have shared called flow state, where the time and your environment just kind of disappears. And then that's kind of that beautiful equilibrium, and you're not even thinking about suffering. And you get to that better place. And I know I certainly do, even if it's just working on something just for myself, it's enough. And to your point, then it's being grateful that you've discovered that tool and carry it forward. And I say we, but I really mean me.
Yeah, I get it.
So many.
Well, one of the things that I'm reminded of, as I was preparing for this, is there is a researcher who defined happiness and says that happiness comes down to two parts. One, experiencing more positive emotions than negative emotions. Mm-hmm. So if you know the activities in your life that increase your positive emotions, then you're doing a really good job. And then the other part is something that you said, having a sense of autonomy and control and having meaning in your life. And
Yeah.
I think creativity, especially as it relates to crafting, can help you increase your positive emotions. It can also give you a sense of meaning and accomplishment. It also helps you talk about flow. Crafting also helps you stay fully present in the moment because you can't be worried about your car problem if you're sitting there focused on a die cut, right?
Yes, exactly. And thinking also, which I put myself into a lot of places, I also am making something for someone else. So I will go far as saying, I don't want to put my bad energy in this card that I'm going to mail to Buck Davis. Like, that doesn't help things either. Truthfully, as silly as that sounds, I really think about manifesting that energy. And we love our devices and our technology, but it's great to put that aside and just keep your hands busy. And whether that's making a card or a scrapbook page, knitting or crocheting, sewing, painting, woodworking, it's exactly that. And then you remember what that feels like. Or I will say too, especially for people who are curious about the creative act, give yourself permission to try it. And you're not perfecting it day one. You're kind of just exploring what this feels like.
Yeah.
And then seeing how it carries you through. Well, since we're having like the Wendy and Buck Davis book club, I wanted to mention actually a new book title. I just picked it up and started flipping through it. It's called Beyond Anxiety by Martha Beck. And it's not just focused on let's work beyond our anxiety, but it's also how creativity can play into that. And one of the things she writes in the book that you've hit on is we need to find something to replace that anxiety and those negative feelings rather than just sitting there. And we talked about this at the Craft Happy event, rumination. You said we cannot ruminate ourselves to recovery. And I want to get a tattoo of that somewhere, maybe not literally, but that whole concept blew my mind. So talk to us more about that and how just wishing away our anxiety and negative feelings is just not enough. And the harm of that rumination.
So rumination is this negative chatter in our head when we hit a bump in the road or have a major disaster happen where we're just, why is this happening to me? It's resisting the moment. It's fighting the moment. This should not be happening. This is wrong. This never happens to somebody. So it's this negative, constant chatter in our head that is usually triggered by a negative event. And what happens is we just end up piling on more negativity on top of an already negative situation. And in these rumination studies, they found that to test this, they had people try to solve a problem while thinking about a current concern at the same time. And it could not be done. They could not solve the problem. And if you think about bumps in the road, whenever there's an issue, we're just trying to fix it. That's all we want to do is get past it and fix it. Well, you can't fix it if you're mired down in it and you're adding more. This never happens to them, or why did he say that, or why did she say that, or why am I going through this? Those are all questions that can't be answered. And so in these rumination studies, it causes us to go into a deeper hole. We become even more pessimistic and negative. We can't solve the problem. It increases the retrieval of other negative memories, Wendy. So we dig back into that knapsack of
not helpful.
Correct. And pull that. This is just like the issue I had with my brother-in-law. This is just like the issue that I had with that client. And we pull those
27 years ago.
Totally. Or this is just like what he said last month.
Yeah.
And we pull that stuff right into our present. And we just get mired down in it. So I say, you will never ruminate yourself into recovery. You will never tell yourself that story enough times to make yourself feel better. All you're doing is re-experiencing the trauma. You're just re-traumatizing yourself. Now, I think that there is a healthy look back from a learning standpoint. What could I have done differently? What could I have learned? And look forward, what will I do different? But for you to sit there, or any of us to sit there and just go over, and I have done this, and I picked up
Same
the
right
phone
here.
and called a friend, and then I phoned another friend, and then I know the phone another friend, and it's just again, again, and again.
Mhm.
Stop the
Yeah,
madness. Yes. So it's rumination. Oh gosh, it's one of in my resilience classes. It is what people start nodding their head at almost the most in the session. People
mhm.
have a hard time putting the brakes on rumination. And if you're crafting, chances are, if you're fully focused on your craft or whatever creative project you're working on, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to distract your mind from that
Absolutely.
other story. And I'm
Yeah.
assuming that crafting will do that.
Absolutely. And that
Yeah.
other story that we're talking about, that goes back to suffering. It may not be as painful, but it's definitely present. And so you're speaking exactly why people like me and so many others craft. It isn't just because I'm creative and I want to make pretty things. There is a deeper meaning to it. And I think that's all the more encouraging for people who are curious about finding some mental health resources. In addition to great therapy, I would say that creativity and crafting is a great place to go. I'm curious for you, Buck, when or how does creativity come into your life? I know we can talk about the project with your dad next, but are there other ways where creativity has come into your world?
Yeah, I love creativity.
Mm-hmm.
I am drawn to creative people. I look
Clearly, we're
totally,
becoming best
totally.
friends. So,
Yeah, yeah,
sorry,
totally.
Anna.
I was having a friend, we're having a conversation with a new friend of mine who's a realtor, and he was telling me that he just did this broker's open house this past week where only realtors could come to see this house. And he had champagne, he had food, and he also had hired a photographer to take headshots of any realtor that showed up, and they had to fill out a link or something in order to get their headshot. But I'm like, that I love that creative spin. I have never heard of another realtor doing something like that for his open house. And I'm like, oh, I'm so drawn to that. That's one of the reasons why I love Instagram so much. You just see so much happening. It's one of the reasons why I love HSN and QVC so much, is because they're helping creative people get their brands off the ground. So for me, I thrive on it. I
Mhm.
was just telling a friend of mine last night, I flipped a house in Atlanta about 5 years ago. It was a really crummy looking house when me and a business partner bought it. And prior to doing anything to it, I hosted an open house for all of my friends to come and see the before of the house. And I put a huge, we actually wrote on the drywall. I had a mural border put up. I'm like, what are some of your ideas for the house?
Oh,
So people
fun.
walked through the house and they scribbled, oh, you should do this and you should do this. And people had so much fun. And I hadn't thought about that moment since last night. I'm like, you know what? That was creative. That was fun. It brought people together, relationships, and it makes me happy. So for me, I thrive on it. I'm not breathing creativity every day, as I'm sure most people aren't, but I know that for me, it gives me something to be motivated and inspired around the year that I had this heart issue in October. I'm like, I am not feeling creative. I'm
Yeah.
not feeling motivated. I'm not feeling inspired. And I'm like, what? And I'm a speaker for any of you who don't know me. I'm a speaker and I do keynotes and training. And I wasn't really inspired to research and create a new keynote. And then this property came available next door to my family's little lake house on a lake in South Carolina. And I'm like, it was a double wide trailer, double wide mobile home. And my dad's owned a trailer park for years. He sold it years ago, but we're trailer park people. I love,
You say with pride. You say with pride.
I love the linear look of mobile homes, and they've just gotten such a bad rap over the years because they've been manufactured with such poor materials. Then, if you visit other areas of the country, like Idaho and LA. There's some incredible modern mobile homes out there. So I'd been wanting to make a modern mobile home for years. The property came available, and I'm like, that would be really good for me. I didn't say I'm excited and I should do it. I was almost like coaching myself. I'm like, that would be really good for me. It'll give me a chance to be creative, which I know I need. It'll give me an opportunity to spend a lot of time with my family because they're 13 miles down the road. And I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to be intentional about. This is what I'm going to do. And it's been a year and some change of problem solving, thinking, being creative, spending time with my dad. It's been really, really good for me over the last 13 months. It should have been done months ago, but things happen.
Open heart surgery. I mean, that's gonna change everybody's schedule. Well, I'm glad you brought that up because that was kind of where I wanted to end our conversation today, was this project with your dad, and hearkening back to Instagram, because I've followed you on Instagram since the Craft Happy event, and I started seeing these photos of you working on this project, and then some sweet photos of you and your dad. And I was like, the joy that radiated from you when you were posing in those photos and just seeing it, I saw another, now granted, it isn't like we see each other every day, but I started to see a different side of you that I hadn't seen before. And clearly there's creativity invested in that. So I think to end today, I would love to hear your thoughts on what the experience specifically with your dad has been like, because creative acts like crafting and others are wonderful for us, but they can be very solitary. And, which is why events like Anna Griffin's Create events twice a year bring us all together. But this project you're doing with your dad is bringing you guys together and in a beautiful season of life. So talk about how that's brought you together and where the creativity is blooming from this, and when I can come stay at the new house.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll pack my bags.
Well, it's hopefully in the next 4 weeks we should be done.
Okay, good deal.
My dad is an entrepreneur. He is a country boy that grew up dirt poor when he was young. And I mean, just a step away from poverty. He would probably say poverty. And he's just a hard worker. He's learned how to do electrical and plumbing and construction. He knows everything about everything. So I don't know how to do stuff. I've learned from him what needs to be done. And so I have a small team of people who are helping us renovate. And he's not as strong. He's 83 in a month. No, he'll be 82 in a month. Today is my mom's 81st birthday. Oh. I feel so lucky to still have both of them.
Wow.
So lucky. And they're mobile and moving around. So when I told him, I'm like, I'll get this property and will you help me, tackle it? And he's just like, absolutely. And he has been up for any and every idea I have brought up. I'm like, let's do this. He's like, let's do this. And I'm like, what do you think needs to happen? And so there's conversation. So I have been up here almost every week for over a year. And if I'm not here, he is on this project. He is delighted to be on this project. And I expose him to things that he's never seen before, because I've turned this was a mobile home. We basically have rebuilt the whole thing into a stick-built house, and it's rather modern looking. And so instead of putting just like a regular wood staircase off the deck, I come up with this really cool idea to have a mono-stringer staircase. Do you know what that is?
I do not, but I will be Googling it when we're done.
Yes, it's basically mono one. There's one beam going down the middle of the stairs, and then you have like floating concrete steps. You've seen it before, probably in movies. And so it was the perfect addition to this outdoor deck that's kind of got a modern spin to it. But he looks at this stuff, and we savor this stuff. Like savoring, I may have brought this up too at Craft Happy, savoring, just puffing out your accomplishments and thinking about the moments. Or, for me, coming into this lake house, my parents' lake house, who I've helped renovate, and just touching the granite countertop, that is a part of tactile savoring. So he and
Oh,
I,
I love that phrase, tactile savoring. Oh,
yes,
that's
yes.
good.
When some of these studies, they have people come in and they'll come in with memorabilia that they hold while they savor. And then some people are just asked to savor a memory. And what they found is that there's really no difference between bringing in a trophy from when you're eighth grade or just thinking about it. So that type of uh, revisiting those moments is so important to our happiness. Yeah.
And I can see the joy in your dad's face, especially. That's what I zero in on your Instagram page, especially.
Yeah.
Just the joy.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's interesting is that I get so many comments when people see a picture of he and I together working in some of the dirtiest of circumstances, but people, for some reason, it just resonates with people, you know?
I think it's because we often see you so like polished and snappy online in so many of your like polished professional videos and things. So to see that authenticity is great. And again, it reinforces that creative act can happen for us. And we even say yes, not even knowing the outcome, where you said, I know this project is going to be good for me. And then look at how it's helped and blessed so many others as well.
Yeah, it's been really a lot of fun, and he is my number one fan, and I am his number one fan. And there's not been one argument, not one argument, not even a disagreement in the last year, as we've had, quite a few stressful moments. The project overall is just fueling us with so many positive emotions that all the little hiccups and stuff, it's just no big deal. No big deal.
And I think I suspect anyone who steps over the threshold in this home once it's finished will likely feel that special energy and that love that was poured into this.
I
what a
hope
legacy
you talk about you don't want to put any negative energy into a card that you're making that you're going to send out. I feel the same way about this house, this short-term rental. The crew has been a beautiful crew of people, and there's not been one yelling match. There's not been one major mistake, and the energy in this little place has just been filled with love from the jump. That's why I know that it's going to be successful in whatever way it needs to be successful. I mean, I may end up having to sell it. Who knows? It may not do as well as I think it's going to do. But for me, it's been a success just moving the project along and getting what I had in my head out of my head onto the property. And all the time that I've had with my dad, it's been fantastic.
Absolutely. That goes without saying. It's that whole process that feeds us as much as the pride and the finished product. It's both. And it goes back to that 40% that we talked about at the start of our conversation. That 40% that we can help manage and control. That's it. That's showing up to the job site with a good attitude.
Yeah. And we need to stay motivated, our brain needs to feel success. Mm-hmm. We need to feel like we're accomplishing something. So whether it is installing a monostring or staircase that's getting finished today, they're putting it in right now, or creating a card and mailing that out. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what the success is, our brain still needs to feel it.
We do as humans. And we are better because of you today, Buck Davis.
Oh, gosh. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
This has been I came in feeling pretty good today, but I feel even better, even lighter and more healed. Whatever cobwebs I had inside, they have been cleared. So
Me too.
Yes.
Thank you for the conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you, Buck. This has been wonderful. I really appreciate your time and your passion and just your honesty and kindness and your dedication to this work too, because we love making pretty things, but we know there's so much more to it. So thank you for helping us understand that today. We appreciate it.
You're so welcome. Absolutely. I appreciate you having me.
You bet. Take care. We just heard from speaker, consultant, and all-around happiness expert Buck Davis on ways we can all live a more fulfilling and rewarding life. To get started today on your own happiness journey, download the PDF in today's show notes. By following these simple steps for a few minutes each day, you'll begin to see a steady improvement in your own emotional and mental well-being.